humans, bees, earthlings, wherever you are, or wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushka, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the WZ113 GFT, and it's a very interesting tank to talk about, specifically because a lot like the Tier 8 variant of the tank, I don't see anything that recommends it so highly to me. There's not a lot that it does that something else doesn't already do. It's got some marginal improvements on certain other tanks, some marginal negatives on certain other tanks. It's basically a tank that falls right in the same kind of line of a Foch 155 or an Object 268. I felt like playing it, it felt a little more like a fast T110E3 with less armor. It's really odd, and yet I loved the tank. I had a great time playing the tank. I really enjoyed it. It was a tank that doesn't have a lot of gun depression. It doesn't have a lot of... it's not super quick, like a Foch is 50 kilometers an hour, a Grill's 50 kilometers an hour, 268's 48, it's 263's 55. This thing's 38 kilometers an hour. I mean, an E3 will do 35 kilometers an hour and has 460 millimeters of armor in certain spots and all this. And this one has great armor on the front. It's got 300 millimeters of armor all over the place. But the thing is, I think one of the reasons I really enjoy this Chinese TD line is I've played so many games in the SU-152 and the ISU-152, and I got to be honest, these tanks are exactly like playing the 152s. You really get a feel for it, but they're 152s with better guns. I mean, they've also got better armor. Like, the only way you're getting penned by a heavy tank at this tier really with AP is if they use... if they use premium ammunition. Like, your frontal armor to an IS-4's AP is just too tough, right? So they got a heat, you can be penned, but fair enough. I mean, that's a good thing. And if you're at range and you're actually on kind of a slope, then it's something that you can use to your advantage and actually be really successful with. It's also got that 640 Alpha 150mm gun, 0.317 dispersion when you're running all the bells and whistles on it, and its DPM is just over the 3,000 mark, which is great. Like, that's, again, middle of the road. You've got the 263s at your 3855, your Grills at 3400, your low end, you're looking at 2960, 2849 on the AMX 50 Foch. So you're right in the low to middle, right? That's fine. And your 38 kilometers an hour top speed, although it's not terrific, your terrain resistance numbers are a lot better than nearly all the other tanks in this tier, apart from the Grill, and that's good. Like, your 1.1, 1.3, and 2, and the soft terrain is actually surprising. Like, that's a really high number, but it's not terrible. It's the same or better than pretty much everyone else in your tier, and that means that for what you've got, you can actually move around a fair bit. So that's cool. The negatives on that is your top end speed is not crazy. Your traverse is good enough for a non-turreted TD, but it just feels like coming home. And I had the same experience with the Tier 8 tank when I was like, wow, this is really good. Like, I'm enjoying this tank. I'm winning a lot and being really effective in it. Why is that? Because I can't see anything in the numbers that really screams at me. And yet it worked. And I think it is that really comfy feeling, like an old pair of slippers. You've jumped into a 152 that's just got a big, ginormous head on it. Like, look at the size of the front part of the tank. It's freaking massive. And that's the feeling I get. It feels like driving a 152. The gun works. I mean, you don't have that crazy Russian gun dispersion. It goes in all the time. It's really, really cool. And it does the same kind of damage, and it's got better armor. So you can get it on an angle like this and it'll actually bounce a lot of shots. I also run all these Chinese TDs with camo nets because that's the kind of tank you've got. I'm going to be doing a lot on camo this week. Stay tuned for that. I've got a special camo week coming up. So I hope you guys enjoy that because there's going to be some really interesting stuff popping. Irma Bex and... the NILF are going to pop aboard and we're going to talk about some of the camo stats that they've got. We're going to post up a spreadsheet to the Discord server, all this kind of thing. It's going to be great. So let's talk about what the tank does well. It is a great ambush predator. You have a high pen 640 alpha gun, 290 millimeters of AP pen, which in and of itself is more than enough to put the fear of God into most tanks out there. And you have 375 millimeters of heat pen, which is a lot of penetration. Like, that is an absolute arseload of penetration. That's the same kind of penetration you get on the heat of a 268, which is tremendously large amounts, and Jagdpanzer 100. They're both at 380 or at 375, which is a lot. So you've got no problems at penning. You're nearly 300 millimeters of pen on your standard rounds, and over 350 millimeters of pen on your premium rounds means you're top of the tree when it comes to getting through tough to clean armor profiles. Like IS4s frontally and things like that are a lot less difficult to deal with. I mean, there's no guarantees on any of this, but you know, you've got the gun to do the right job, and your HE splash is pretty freaking effective as always. I mean, that's an IS4 up there. We get 400 HE splash and don't get spotted into the bargain. So winner winner chicken dinner, we're all across that. It's massive. Your sides are incredibly weak. I mean, your side armor is horrific. You've got 85 millimeters of flat side armor. So if you show your sides, you'll get HE penned. And that's a big issue because the tank is enormous. If it was really low to the ground, it seems to have good camo. If it was really low to the ground, it'd just be far too strong. It would be a beast of a tank. What you've got instead is a tank that's very nice at ambushing, very nice at getting shots to connect, and very nice at penetrating with a big-ass gun and decent DPM. And it's got just enough mobility to get around the battlefield and do the job. So you can't really say that it's a poor tank in any aspect. It's actually pretty solid all the way across the board. And because of that, I don't think it's going to become a favorite. Like, it's not like a specialized speed demon like a 268 or a 263, but it will really cover off on a lot of important parts of your tier 10 gameplay, and it will deal with big ass tanks like the IS4 just fine and dandy, which is important because at the moment the upper echelon tier 10 gameplay, there is so much really good heavy tank gameplay going on, like big nasty heavies, your Mouses, your IS4s, your IS7s, and with the Chieftain Mark 6s popping everywhere as well. I mean, there's just a lot of heavies in game, and having that kind of pen, obviously a 2 thumbs up from this guy. It's an interesting looking tank as well. I've got to say that it's that upper glacis at 300 millimeters plus to pen is very, very cool. It's the same kind of armor profile of a Foch 155. It just doesn't have anywhere near that kind of blinding pace, and the profile, the armor profile, is so much taller. It doesn't really feel like a Foch to drive for me. Maybe it should. Maybe I should drive the Foch more. I know Skate loves it like a Foch, loves that Foch kind of feel, and that's fair enough. And he's been a massive Foch fan right from the get-go. Me, I'm a little bit more of an old school, you know, armor kind of player, and I hate those extrusions on top. With that in mind, though, you should know they're very hard to hit. But the hatches are only 102 and 127 millimeters, so you can be penned on top. It makes it very important that you try and keep this tank slightly elevated above a target. Ideally, you get a nice angle above on a hill, you bounce a shot, you roll forward, you take a shot, you pull back. That's the kind of play style you can get behind. But it serves so well as just a 152 that's been upgraded to tier 10. And if you got used to playing that tank, you're going to be able to play this tank like a breeze. I think that's something that's vastly overlooked, is the concept of familiarity with the actual vehicle itself. It's a very easy to drive tank because so many of us have spent our days derping away at tiers 7 and 8 and running that old 1920s 152 millimeter. Like, it's a spectacularly comfortable tank, and it took me a while to figure out why I could just pick it up and play it so easily, and it didn't even feel tough, and why it actually felt a little bit overpowered. Because you can imagine, if you're so used to driving a 152, you'd never expect the bounces that you get in this tank, but it legitimately has a very, very strong armor profile at the top, and you don't hit shots like that very often with the 152 either. That's a very much a WZ113 kind of thing. Your shell velocity is crap, but it's an AP round at tier 10 on a TD. So if you're expecting anything spectacular, you shouldn't. Like the grill's shell velocity is miles better at 1350, but this is right in line with what you'd expect from a low-end, big 152 style tank. The AP shell is very, very slow. 760 meters of shell velocity on your AP is horrific. It's not going to light anyone's heart on fire. It works though. It works, and it works well. And I've got to say, the line itself is very, very solid. The tier 6 is a great tank to drive. I really enjoyed it. The tier 7 was outstanding. I'm going to do a review on that. The tier 8 is an absolute blast, and again, very, very easy to drive. The tier 9, the same deal again. And you get to the tier 10, and it's the continuity throughout the line is exceptional. There's a few lines that do that, where they manage to hold the same style of tank through 8, 9, 10, 7. And it means that you can basically learn how to play it early on and just adjust marginally as you roll forward. And that's exactly what you do with this tank. It's brilliant for that. It's the kind of tank that doesn't stand out from the crowd for any one specific thing, but is just so old school TD. So give it a go. If you are driving up this line, it's well worth the effort. It's a fun tank, and it's a tank that has a slightly different playstyle to the big beasts of burden that you're used to in the Russian line and the Flying Frenchman, the Foch 155, and I enjoy it. I feel like they've done a better job with these guys straight out of the tech tree than they did with the Chinese mediums, which I thought sucked and were immediately buffed and buffed again. I mean, I called that as soon as I drove them, because they started those guys so far below the poverty line in terms of their stats. This is right in the meat of the TD lines, and I think because of that, they won't have to touch these things much at all. These guys will be pretty successful. There's that angle I was talking about. If you can get it angled up, you'll do just great. We had enough hit points to just deal with this dude. And kapowie, kablamo, thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoy that. I'm Bushka. Look after yourselves. Lots more to come on channel, so stick around. And as always, stay safe on the battlefield.